well, we're going to learn about Haile Sellassie today. We're going to talk about him. They don't do that. They talk about Jesus Christ. The purpose of the church is to talk about Jesus Christ. So when I go to the church, I learn about Jesus Christ. I don't go to the church to ask them, is Haile Sellassie really God? Because I need you to tell me if he's really God.
Well, if you did to the archbishop of that church, what do you think they would say?
Well, I know what they would say, and I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to give you some full what I collected in my studies. So the church, when I go to the church, and I have gone to the Ethiopian church in St. Louis before, when I go to the church, when I talk to people about Haile Sellassie, it's after church, before church. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when I ask them about it, I'm asking people's perspective just to see, how are Ethiopians thinking? Because I want to see how they're thinking. It's not to, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong. Let me ask an Ethiopian, because an Ethiopian Orthodox can tell me if Haile Sellassie is really God. And if it's a priest that Haile Sellassie sent, well, yeah, he's going to be the one. He's going to know if he's God or not. Well, many people can look at it like that, but this is how I look at it. During the days of Christ, when he came unto his own. He came unto the Jews. The Jews were well studied. They probably studied more than most people nowadays do. And they received him not. Now, when we see Christ, when we Rastafari people see Christ come as Haile Sellassie, and we see him amongst his own people, and they're not proclaiming him as God.
So you're saying Archbishop received him not?
No. What I'm saying is that when we look at the example of Christ amongst his own people, the majority did not accept him. That is the lesson.
Let's agree the majority didn't accept Haile Sellassie as Lord in Ethiopia. There's only a few believers there, and they're living in Shoshone land.
That I can agree with. That right there, yes, I can agree with that. But what I wanted to point out is that when we look at the first coming, it was the minority, not the majority, that saw Christ as the Messiah.
True, but it grew exponentially.
It did, yeah.
3,000 in one day.
So when we look at Haile Sellassie and we see the majority saying, well, here's the perspective of Ethiopians in the church as Haile Sellassie is God. As Archbishop Yeshuk said, Ethiopians in the church do not see Haile Sellassie as God. That's what he said. I've listened very carefully to him.
On that one.
Now, when I look at him saying that, I'm looking at him telling us the majority perspective of Ethiopians in the church. This is the collective idea.
So you will accept the majority perspective.
Well, let me
perspective
finish.
In Rastafari.
Well, you're going to see. You just let me finish. You're going to see how I feel about it.
All right.
So when he talks about it, I see him talking about a majority perspective, which is nothing. It's, as you see me comparing it to Christ when he came, the majority perspective was not right. So when I look at him, I'm listening to him talk about the majority perspective. Now, when I do my own studies beyond listening to the Archbishop or beyond listening to people that I see in the church, I start to find myself, and I start to see that there probably still is Ethiopians, Orthodox members that see Haile Sellassie as a biblical king whose honor is written in prophecies, and the things that they say about him, the things that they attribute him to,
biblical king,
are. The things that they attribute him to are things that Christians would attribute to Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that so you understand what I'm saying. So when I look at a majority perspective in the Ethiopian Orthodox community, this is what I see. I have praise poems by multiple clergymen from the 1920s or mid-1920s where a few things that they say is they refer to Haile Sellassie as a gospel that can save all. They also say that his honor is written in prophecy and even seen in visions. Now, the way that they start describing him, I'm not going to tell you the whole thing. They're describing him in a way that Christians would attribute to Jesus Christ, that they would describe Jesus Christ in this way. That's how I'm seeing them doing that. Now, that is one example. When I look at more examples, when I look for more examples of our perspective within the Ethiopian community, I see something very important that kind of talks about how the majority and minority kind of conflict within the Ethiopian community. If you look inside of the Ethiopian National Library, there is a mural that covers one side of the building.
You talked about it.
Yeah. So when we look at this mural, we are seeing something that is highly referencing biblical referencing. And when we look at it, we're not just seeing something that somebody created and was like, here, this is what I think. This is what I think. It's something that was painted by a woman that works on Ethiopian church paintings. She writes books about it. And another Ethiopian man who's known for executing portraits very well, paintings of portraits. So when that time came for me, when I saw that, I realized that the people that are painting this are not Rastafarians. They are of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And the person that commissioned the painting, the person that is the minister of education in Ethiopia when it was put there, the person that is the defender of the Eastern Oriental Orthodox Christian faith, commissioned the painting and stood in front of it and was photographed under his approval. Now, when I look at that and I see the biblical referencing, I'm starting to get a bigger idea here, and I'm trying to understand it really.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see 4 horsemen in each cardinal point, I see revelations. When I see Haile Sellassie dressed as King of Kings in his coronation robe, with the Ark of the Covenant behind him in the temple that they drew behind him, and scales, one lowered and one raised on each side of him, I'm starting to get the idea. Okay, anybody that reads Revelation seriously can get the idea when they look at that. But there's one very important thing to me beyond what it's showing me, beyond Haile Selassie commissioning it, beyond the artist being of Ethiopian Orthodox background. It is the fact that when I look at the painting, it is showing us that Haile Selassie, the seriousness of who he is as minister of education, as defender of the faith. Someone to commission a mural like that and allow it to be in their institution, in their kingdom, is not just a diplomatic thing. It's not just, well, let's be tolerant of other people's faith. Let's just let people have their perspectives. Haile Selassie was very serious about his religion, the Bible, and his church. And in his kingdom, he doesn't have to be religiously diplomatic and let people have if something is blasphemous against, he took a vow as a Christian king to protect the Ethiopian Orthodox Church faith. So if there's someone that comes into his kingdom, in his institutions, that does something that is portraying the Bible or him in a blasphemous way that goes against his beliefs, the teachings of the church, the Bible, then he wouldn't allow it. That's as simple as I can say it. He just wouldn't allow it. So there is a bigger meaning, and there's a bigger whole collective message when you look at this instance. Now,
you guys ready to head out?
I think that was a good conversation. I don't want to hold you while your family's trying to move.
I don't feel like it's been a back and forth, but I'd love to at least share like where I'm from on this, and it would be a painting is a painting to me. The Sistine Chapel or the this or the that. Did Haile Selassie commission it? Did he say, you have to do this? This is what I want you to draw?
Well, one thing I forgot to mention, Mark, I actually forgot I was going to bring this up, is that in the National Archives of the Library, of the National Library, there is no mention of what the actual mural is representing or meaning. There is no explanation of biblical reference.
Like art, you can construe one way or you construe it another way. For me, what matters most, I'm a white guy talking to a non-black guy about Africa, about a religion that came out of that, about a faith that came out of that. I don't think I can be an authority. I know
if you prove yourself studied and approved, you can show people that you're serious.
The thing that I want to be studied and approved of is not other people's opinions.
Okay.
It's not the collective opinion. It's not the majority opinion. We saw what the majority opinion did for our nation in the last year with voting. For me, it's not first opinion. It's 1 Corinthians. It's the Word of God. For me, that's like the foundation. And I feel like when I read through Haile Selassie's writings,